I need to tell you about something that happens every day in the biggest physics laboratories in the world, and that almost no one realizes the importance of. Something so common that scientists no longer talk about it. But it should make anyone stop everything they're doing and think for a long time. Every day, somewhere in the world, a physicist sits in front of a whiteboard, writes an equation, does the calculations, arrives at a prediction, and then goes to the laboratory to test it. And the prediction works. The universe behaves exactly as the equation said it should. Exactly. No more or less. Not approximately. Exactly. Up to the 5th, the 6th, the 10th decimal place. And everyone acts like this is the most normal thing in the world, as if it were obvious that scribbles on a whiteboard should describe the behavior of galaxies billions of light years away. As if it were natural that an abstract language, invented by human minds, could predict what subatomic particles will do before any instrument detects them. But it's not normal, it's not obvious, it's not natural. It is a mystery so profound that the greatest geniuses in the history of science have been disturbed by it. And it is a mystery that atheism has not been able to solve to this day. John Lennox understood this in a way that few others do. And what he did with that understanding is something that I think can change the way you see everything. But let's go in parts, because this conversation deserves calm. Think with me. What is mathematics? Basically, what is it? It is a collection of abstract ideas, numbers, symbols, relationships, logical patterns. You don't bump into a number walking down the street. Don't trip over an equation on the way to work. Mathematics exists in the mind. It's immaterial. It's abstract. It is, in a sense, invisible. And now look at the universe. The universe is physical. It's concrete. It is made of matter, energy, particles, forces. It is the opposite of abstract. It's real in the most tangible sense possible. And here's the mystery. These two things, abstract mathematics and the concrete universe, fit together perfectly, like a key in a lock, as if they were made for each other. Mathematics describes the universe with a precision that should not exist if everything were chance. And the universe obeys mathematics with a fidelity that makes no sense if there is no purpose. Eugene Wigner, Nobel laureate in physics, wrote about this in the 60s. He called it the irrational efficacy of mathematics. And the word he used was irrational. Not impressive, not interesting, irrational. Because from a materialist point of view, this makes no sense. If the universe is a random accident, there's no reason for it to follow mathematical laws. None. Chance does not produce mathematical order. Chance does not produce symmetry. Chance does not produce elegant equations that describe the behavior of matter on all scales, from the subatomic to the cosmic, with perfect precision. And Einstein, not exactly an impressionable guy, said something everyone should get tattooed on their forehead. The most incomprehensible thing about the universe is that it is comprehensible. The guy who understood space-time better than any living human being was confessing, I don't understand why I can understand it. Lennox takes these confessions, from Wigner, from Einstein, from so many others, and asks a question that I have never seen any atheist answer satisfactorily. If the universe was not designed by a mind, why does it behave as if it had been? And I want you to understand the weight of that question. Because it's not rhetoric, it's not a trick. It's a legitimate question that demands a legitimate answer. And the answers that atheism offers simply don't work. The first attempt at an answer goes something like this. Mathematics works because we create it to describe reality. It's a tool that we shape for the world we see. It seems reasonable, but there's a huge problem. If mathematics were just a tool shaped by observation, it should only work to describe things that we have already observed. But that's not what happens. Mathematics predicts things we haven't seen yet. Maxwell's equations were written in the 1860s. They predicted the existence of electromagnetic waves that propagate at the speed of light. No one had detected these waves yet. There was no radio, television, Wi-Fi, nothing like that. The equation said, this should exist. And when Hertz did the experiments decades later, there they were, exactly as the math predicted. Dirac wrote an equation in the 1920s, trying to combine quantum mechanics with relativity. The equation produced an unexpected result. It required the existence of a particle identical to the electron, but with the opposite charge. Nobody knew what to make of it. It seemed like a mistake, but Dirac trusted the equation. And in 1932, Carl Anderson found exactly this particle in cosmic rays, the positron, antimatter, something that no one imagined it existed, predicted by an equation before any observation. And the most recent and most spectacular example, the Higgs boson, theoretically predicted in the 1960s by an equation. Nobody knew if it really existed. It took 40 years and billions of dollars to build a particle accelerator big enough to test it. And in 2012, there he was, exactly where the math said it would be, with the properties that mathematics said it would have. Mathematics is not a glove molded onto the hand of reality. It is a map that reveals territories that no one has visited. And when someone finally gets there, the map is right. Every time. This is not a tool adapted to observation. This is something much deeper. This suggests that mathematics is linked to the fundamental structure of reality in a way that materialism cannot explain. Atheism's second attempted answer is evolution. Our brains were shaped by natural selection to recognize patterns, and mathematics is a sophisticated extension of this ability. And again, it looks good on the surface, but when you dig a little, it falls apart. Natural selection shaped our brains to survive, to escape lions, to find food, to identify danger. Nothing in the African savanna required us to be able to understand quantum field theory. Nothing in the survival of our ancestors depended on understanding algebraic topology. Nothing in the environment in which the human mind evolved required the ability to formulate equations that describe what happened in the first trillionth of a second after the Big Bang. And yet, we are capable of this. The human mind goes absurdly beyond what survival requires. And this is a huge problem for those who believe that the mind is just a product of natural selection. Because natural selection is economical. It does not give an organism more than it needs. If survival on the savannah was all that mattered, why do we have brains capable of understanding the curvature of space-time? Why can we write symphonies? Why do we do philosophy? Why do we contemplate existence? None of this helps you escape predators. Darwin himself noticed this problem. He wrote in a letter, "I have a horrible doubt as to whether the convictions of the human mind, which has developed from the minds of lower animals, have any value or are in any way reliable. Would anyone trust the convictions of the mind of an ape?" And that is a devastating question. Because if the human mind is just a survival machine, shaped not to find the truth but to stay alive, then why should we trust it when it does science? Why should we believe that our theories about the universe are true and not just useful for survival? Materialism cuts off the branch it is sitting on. If the mind is just the product of blind forces, then science is just a sophisticated instinct, not a search for truth. And if science is not a search for truth, the entire edifice of scientific atheism crumbles, because scientific atheism says, we follow science, and science shows us that God does not exist. But if the mind that does science is unreliable, if it's just a survival machine that wasn't designed to find truths, then science isn't reliable either. And neither does the atheism that is based on it. Lennox calls this the intellectual suicide of materialism. Because materialism uses reason to argue that reason is unreliable, use logic to conclude that logic is just an instinct, use the mind to prove that the mind was not made to find truths. It's like sawing the ground beneath your own feet and hoping not to fall. But if the human mind was designed by an intelligence, if we were made to know the truth, to understand the universe, to penetrate the mysteries of reality, then everything makes sense. Mathematics works because the same mind that structured the universe structured the human mind to understand it. There is a correspondence between the cosmos and consciousness because they both come from the same source. And science is not a sophisticated survival instinct. It is the legitimate exploitation of a creation by creatures made in the image of the Creator. And there's more. Because mathematics in the universe is not just functional, she is beautiful. This may seem irrelevant, it may seem sentimental, but it's not. The greatest physicists in history took the beauty of mathematics completely seriously. Dirac said that it is more important that an equation is beautiful than that it agrees with experiments. And most surprising, when physicists followed beauty, they got it right. When they chose the most elegant equation among the options, it turned out to be true. Reality seems to prefer beauty. The universe is not just functional, it is aesthetically stunning in its mathematical structure. And the question is, why? If the universe is chance, why is it beautiful? Natural selection doesn't care about beauty. Evolution does not reward mathematical elegance. There is no evolutionary pressure for the universe to have beautiful symmetries or elegant equations. And yet it does. The universe is, in the words of many physicists, absurdly beautiful in structure. And the human mind is capable of perceiving this beauty, to be moved by her, to feel something when you look at a perfect equation that is similar to what you feel at a sunset or a symphony. There is something within us that recognizes mathematical beauty and responds to it with wonder, with reverence, almost with adoration. Lennox says, this makes sense if the universe was made by someone who loves beauty. It makes sense if the mind behind everything is not just intelligent, but an artist. And it makes sense if we were made in the image of this mind, which would explain why we recognize and respond to the beauty it planted in creation. And now I want to do something that I think is important. I want to bring all of this to the place where you live, for your everyday life, for your real life. Because I know maybe you're thinking, that's nice, but what does it have to do with me? with my problems, with my pain, with the questions I ask in the early hours of the morning when I can't sleep. It has everything to do with it. Because if the mathematics of the universe points to a creative mind, the next question is inevitable. Does this mind care about me? Or is it like an engineer who built a machine and left? Is it a cold, distant, indifferent intelligence? Or is it something more? And here's where math alone isn't enough. Math gets you to the door. It shows you that there is a mind, but it doesn't tell you who that mind is. For that, you need something else. It needs history. You need to look at the facts and ask, did this mind ever reveal itself? And Lennox argues yes, that the mind that wrote the equations of the universe revealed itself in history, at a specific time, in a specific place, as a specific person. Because fine-tuning the universe doesn't feel like the work of an indifferent God. It looks like the work of someone who wanted life to exist, that I wanted you to exist. Who calibrated each constant, each force, each law with the care of someone who is preparing something for someone they love. And if this mind loves like this, then it makes sense that at some point it would reveal itself. Let him come here. Let it go down in history. Let it be known. And what the historical sources tell us, sources inside and outside Christianity, Roman sources, Jewish sources, pagan sources, is that a man named Jesus of Nazareth appeared in first century Palestine. That he did extraordinary things that even his enemies did not deny, who was executed on a cross, and that something happened after his death that turned a group of fearful fishermen into the bravest preachers the world has ever seen, and that something needs an explanation. Because people don't change like that. A coward doesn't become a martyr overnight for no reason. A group of frightened people don't make up a lie and happily die for it without anyone breaking it. Something happened. Something real. Something so powerful that it completely reconfigured the lives of every person who experienced it. And when you combine this with mathematics, when you realize that the same universe that seems designed by a mind also seems to have been the scene of a direct intervention by that mind, the picture that emerges is impressive. The intelligence that made mathematics work is the same one that entered history as a human being. The God who calibrated the constants of physics is the same one who died on a cross. The mind that wrote the equations is the same one that said, I love you, in the most radical way possible. And that changes everything. Change the way you look at the universe. Because now stars aren't just balls of gas. They are the handwriting of someone who loves you. Gravity is not just a force. It is the embrace of a mind that holds everything together. And mathematics is not just a useful tool. It is the language of a God who wanted you to understand his work. And it changes the way you look at yourself. Because if the same mind that designed the universe with such precision and beauty also made you, then you are no accident. It's not noise. It is not an unimportant side effect of blind processes. You were thought of with the same precision as the constants of the universe, with the same intention, with the same care. And that feeling you get sometimes that life should have more meaning than it seems to, that there's something missing, that the world is broken in a way it shouldn't be. That feeling is not weakness. It's the most mathematical part of you working perfectly. It's your soul doing the right calculation and coming to the conclusion that the numbers of materialism don't add up. That's a variable missing, that the equation is incomplete without God. The equation that atheism cannot solve is not about numbers. It's about meaning. It's about why the universe is intelligible. Why does the mind in human goes beyond survival? Why math works? Why beauty exists? Why does moral conscience exist? Why do you feel like life should have purpose? Materialism looks at all this and says, coincidence? Chance? There's no reason. Lennox looks at all this and says, yes, there is a reason, and why it has a name. And that name changed history. And it can change your life if you have the courage to look. Now it's up to you. If this made sense, leave a like. If something moved you while listening, comment below. If someone comes to mind, someone who needs to hear this, share. Subscribe to the channel, and see you in the next one.